Welcome, everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Crew Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by Replenishing Care Technologies, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about Replenishing Care and technologies, go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner at the top of the page. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in a man that has a ring from 1981, played for Bobby Knight in National Championship game, but maybe more importantly, now co-host the golf show with Lukas Weese. You want to tell us more about that, Steve?
Good morning, Mike. Good afternoon to you and Lukas out there on the East Coast. It's still 8 a.m. here, 9 o'clock in the morning out here. Hello, everybody. And, looking at sports news, over the weekend, the only really big sports news was the PGA, really. The resurgence of Tiger Woods, the layout and beauty of the golf course. But rather than go in detail with that, I tell you what, Lukas and I did a really good golf show last night. It'll be up and running tonight after our producer gets off his tail and edits the show for us and produces it. We'll get it up for you tonight, but it's a really good in-depth review of the tournament. Lukas, our partner, our regular special guest, was at the event and had a lot of insight into the course, the crowds, the intensity there. And rather than tell you all about it now, go to the gruelingtruth.net, the golf show, hosted by Lukas. I'll give Lukas first billing because he was there, and me, and you'll hear all about it, and it's a really good show.
Yeah, and that brings us to our guest today, who is from Canada, and since he's been on the show, I've noticed that Donald Trump and a lot of his followers have been tweeting that maybe we should build a wall between us and Canada to keep Lukas out. Help me welcome to the show, Lukas Weese.
Great to be on today, Mike, and loving the annual, the daily humor with Canada as always. Looking forward to the show.
Lukas,
all right,
Lukas, wait, Lukas. You don't think we put you on the show because you have anything to bring in terms of content, do you? We bring you on the show because Mike and I love to have an easy punching bag. So know your place in this whole process.
I know
right?
that.
I do it so I could have somebody of similar intelligence on the show, and
similar intelligence to you. Well, coming from Aurora, Indiana, you guys probably aren't about the same page as similar intelligence.
Yeah, you're from Indianapolis. That's a whole hell of a lot better.
I live in L.A. now, man. I'm sophisticated.
That makes it even worse. Now you're just a liberal. Now you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, probably.
I am not a Bernie Sanders supporter. I am a conservative living in a liberal world, and it is funner than hell. It is so fun to taunt these people. It is crazy. It's like shooting ducks in a pond.
All right, so our topic today, of course, last week we had the Hall of Fame inductions. Robert Brazil, friend of the show. Terrell Owens made an ass of himself. Randy Moss, all these guys go in. Ray Lewis. So our topic today is to name the top 10 guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame as of right now that should be in. Now, I would like to preface this by this. I think only the greatest players of all time should be in the Hall of Fame. What I did when making this list is I think that half of these guys on my list most definitely are. The other ones I think qualify because they're just as qualified, if not more qualified, than anybody else, or than a lot of these guys that are already in. Lukas, what's your take on the Hall of Fame and how you came up with your list?
Well, I use similar standards. I mean, for me, I think the Hall of Fame is meant for the all-time greats, the elite of the game. I think with football, it's a little bit, tougher just because, there's so many different positions. And I think that every position
and there's so many players to choose from. It's not like, basketball where there's 5 guys on a starting lineup.
Yeah, and I think in basketball, it's, I think a little easier to see, which of the guys really stood out and were just all-time greats. Because in football, a safety doesn't have the same cachet like a quarterback, let's say, but they could be 2 all-time greats at their position. So I tried to, use that in my selection and to select 10 guys that I think are Hall of Fame worthy and should be in Canton.
All right, Steve?
All right. Being the intelligent, sophisticated West Coast kind of guy that I am now, I basically, at this point in time, think that Hall of Fames are more of a publicity stunt and a joke than they are a real sense of measure of the greatest of the game. I think the greatest of the game belong in the Hall of Fame. The problem is, because we made this such a production now in every sport to have these big induction ceremonies, these great massive events made for television, we elect people and put them in just to have enough audience to fill enough time to sell enough commercials to get enough people in. Therefore, I think people get in who are marginally worthy but not should be sitting alongside the greats of the game with their wall on the flag or their face or their bust, whatever it is that you get in and sitting there. So I don't really have a big liking for the Hall of Fame induction ceremony or the whole process. I like to see it when a player that I've read about or know or watched his career and just said, you know, that guy was a stand-up guy for a long period of time in this league and did it year in and year out. That guy belongs in the Hall of Fame. But when I start seeing people who just get in because we need to have 5 guys that make busts for this year, we put them in. And that's in all sports. It's not just in football. It's not just in basketball. It's all sports do that now. It's a production. People get in. I found 10 guys to put in. I'm not ranking them. They're just guys I think that are deserving to be in the Hall of Fame based mostly on some people who are in the Hall of Fame who I think shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think anybody I'm going to mention today measures up to the greatest players of the game. I think the greatest players of the game.
I disagree because I think all 12 of mine do.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, well, but I can guarantee you, you're not going to name anybody who's going to sit alongside Babe Ruth in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Oscar
because they don't play baseball. You realize this is a football show, right?
Yeah, I'm getting my point.
Okay.
Or anybody who's going to sit next to Jim Brown in the Football Hall of Fame. You're not going to name anybody.
You know what? There's probably maybe 3 guys that could sit next to Jim Brown.
Okay, well, and you're a smarter football person than I am. So I give you credit for knowing that. I know where my strengths and weaknesses
And actually,
lie.
I can tell you on my list that I think maybe the greatest defensive lineman of all time is my number 1 guy. So I do have guys here, and I think that...
Is that L.C. Greenwood?
No. It's none of your business right now. It'll kill the show if we do that. So
I know,
when I look
Alex
at this...
Karras. You're going to go with Alex Karras.
Actually, I'm not.
Okay.
So Alex Karras is in my list, but he is nowhere near number 1.
He's not worthy of the Hall of Fame. He's known for being an actor, and he is a football player.
He is?
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Well, you're okay. So let's go with number 10, Steve.
I don't have him ranked. I'm just going down the list.
I don't care. You're going to have to rank them now because everybody else did, and you knew the rules.
Well, I changed the rules. I get the right to do that.
Who you got at number 10, Steve?
In no uncertain terms, I have on the list people that should be in there is Randy Gradishar. Randy Gradishar was a solid leader of the Denver Broncos defense, part of the Orange Crush in the late 70s. Has been eligible for the Hall of Fame since 1989. NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Pro Bowl selection 7 times, first team All-Pro 5 times, second team All-Pro another time. He's been a finalist to be in the Hall of Fame twice and semifinalist 4 other times. I think Randy Gradishar deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So if you want to label him number 10, go ahead, but I'm just going down the list that I have.
All right. Randy Gradishar, I can deal with. I think he should be. I actually wrote an article about why he should be. So I'll let you go on that one. We'll give you a pass. Okay. I think Steve did nice. Lucas, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is John Lynch, safety John Lynch. I mean, he was a good safety. Had over 1,000 tackles, 13 quarterback sacks, 26 INTs, 16 forced fumbles. He was a 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they had that aggressive Tampa 2 defense in the early 2000s. Yeah, I think, I think he was a solid safety, played the position really well, and he's my number 10. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
All right. Steve, you have any problem with that?
Not at all. Don't know who John Lynch is. So
I hope you're kidding. Because
maybe
we talked about the San Francisco 49ers like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he's their GM right now. And I believe this, Lucas, if they're successful, I think he'll get in because of that. because it's happened before. All right, my number 10 is a tie.
He's general manager? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if they win, it gets him more relevance. It puts him on there. My number 10 is Roy Jefferson, wide receiver for the Washington Redskins, Pittsburgh Steelers. And when I look at Roy Jefferson, I compare him to somebody like Lynn Swann. And when you look at Roy Jefferson, more than 120 more catches, over 2,000 more receiving yards. He averaged almost 17 yards a catch during his career, 52 touchdowns, which was a huge number back then. The other thing that's interesting about Swann gets him because of Super Bowl X, the 2 catches he made there. But when you look at their career, Lynn Swann never had a 1,000-yard receiving season, ever in his career. Roy Jefferson was 1,074, 1,079 with the Steelers in 68 and 69, and those were Steeler teams that were terrible. He got traded away, goes to Baltimore in 1970, had a great season in 1970 with Baltimore, one of the big reasons they won the Super Bowl, goes to Washington, and I don't think it's any coincidence that Washington, within 2 years, is in a Super Bowl. I think Roy Jefferson was a great blocker. I think all around he was a lot better player than Lynn Swann. So my number 10 is Roy Jefferson. Now, I want to do a tie because I want to put Cliff Branch in here too. And Cliff Branch is the same thing. I think Cliff Branch was a much better receiver than Lynn Swann. He has much better numbers, and I think they both belong in there before Lynn Swann. Lucas, number 9.
My number 9 is Isaac Bruce, wide receiver for the Rams. When he retired in 2009, he was one of the most proficient receivers in history, ranked second in yards with over 15,000, fifth in catches, and eighth in touchdowns. And to me, what's so amazing about him is that he did this all alongside Torrey Holt. And Torrey Holt, you could definitely make a credible case that he's in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, I think the hold up here is, you got, 2 receivers who, they had to share the ball. But to me, given that, I think Isaac Bruce had a remarkable career, and he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
All right, I agree. I think a lot of the problem there was you had so many guys like Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, that some of these guys like Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt just kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, the great.
You were supposed to respond to that, Lucas. Come on.
I did.
I know. I was just messing with you. Steve, you're number 9, but not necessarily in order.
Well, no, I'll go ahead. I had Cliff Branch on my list. Definitely goes in. So I'll just follow along your suit, and I'll put him, mention him next, so you can rank him at number 9 for me. But I want to make a point. You talked about Lynch, right? And one of the comments you made was, well, we hope that the 49ers do well this year because that'll up his game or get him more recognized.
And that is my point in all this.
And we're campaigning to put people in the Hall of Fame. You shouldn't have campaigned to put a player in the Hall of Fame. They should. Why are we worried about his afterlife player contributions when he's going in as a player? He needs to have that to get in the Hall of Fame. Now we're fabricating reasons to put him in the Hall of Fame. That's my whole point with the Hall of Fame.
It's been done before for other people that were commentators or whatever, too.
There's only a handful of players that really need to go into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I don't think John Lynch is one of them.
It just becomes like a Ring of Fame, where now the culture taking names off the Ring of Fame. They don't have any more room to put names on the Ring of Fame because they put too many stupid players on the Ring of Fame. Because every year we get sentimental about some player and think, oh, my God, this guy was a really good player for us, like Bill Brooks. Okay, let's put Bill Brooks on the Ring of Fame. Bill Brooks was a marginal receiver for the Colts. Okay?
I forgot about Bill Brooks till you brought him up.
Yeah, but he's coming down now because we are out of room on the Ring of Fame in the Colts football stadium. So it's like, there you go. There's a perfect example of why I don't have a lot of valid interest in the Hall of Fame. Unless it's truly a person like a Tony Gonzalez, who is the second greatest receiver in the history of the game in terms of most all stats and records, who will go in this year as a first ballot Hall of Famer. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Other than that, there's probably the only person, maybe Champ Bailey, going in this year probably too, that should go in with him. And maybe Ed Reed, another great defensive safety. Those guys are all
Ed Reed's no doubt first. I think Ed Reed's best safety ever saw.
There's 3 names of people that through their career earned the right to be in there. Now we're talking about John Lynch. We're going to start manufacturing crap and put him in the Hall of Fame.
Because this is the thing, Lucas. Is John Lynch anywhere near in Ed Reed's world?
No.
No.
I'm not
of course not. No, of course not.
That's my issue with the Hall of Fame.
All right. Now, I'm going to give you a safety next. I got a safety. I'm going to go with another tie at number 9 because I think both of these guys should have been in immediately as soon as they were eligible, and they're both older guys now, and they're probably going to get.
You're just saying you shouldn't rank your players either. Just you have ties everywhere. Ties.
No, I don't have any ties after this. I'm just trying to get the old guys in that you've never heard of up there.
All right. Okay. Well, there you go.
My number 9.
Campaigning for the Hall of Fame. The problem with the Hall of Fame.
It's not campaign. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to campaign when you get screwed over. And this is a guy that did, because there's no doubt Eddie Medder's a Hall of Famer. I mean, Eddie Medder, a 6-time Pro Bowler, still holds 4 or 5 Rams records, 46 interceptions. The thing about Medder is he was a first-team All-Pro as a corner and a safety, 6 Pro Bowls. And the most important thing is this, and this is the same reason I thought Robert Brazile more than deserved it. He is the safety on the NFL's All-Decade team in 1960. So when you look at the safety for an entire decade and you're considered the best one, how is that not a Hall of Famer, Steve?
I don't disagree with you.
So, I mean, when you look at this, there are guys that, to me, are no doubt Hall of Famers that have been ignored. I mean, there's a quote about Eddie Medder from Merlin Olsen. Merlin Olsen said about Medder that he was the finest defensive back he has ever seen. Outstanding in coverage, fierce tackler, had a remarkable nose for the ball, and he was also the leader in one of my favorite teammates. So this is a guy that George Allen made the captain of the team in the 60s, and the Rams in the late 60s were one of the greatest teams of all time, with Roman Gabriel at quarterback, the fearsome foursome up front, and even with the fearsome foursome up front, Eddie Medder was the guy that they made the captain of that team. He was undersized, came from, I think, Arkansas Tech University. Nobody thought that he could play at that level, and by the time he's done, he's considered the best safety of the 1960s, or one of the 3. There's 3 guys that are on the All-Decade team. The other 2 guys are long in. Eddie Medder's still not in, but like I said, how many guys that played in the 1960s still hold 4 records for a current team? You look at him, there's still never been a Ram, whether it was Nolan Cromwell or any of the great defensive backs they had, that had the 46 interceptions that Medder had. And he was a Pro Bowler at 2 separate positions. My other guy, which is a guy that I think's been forgotten, who should have been a no-brainer, was Chuck Howley. He's the only NFL player to win the Super Bowl MVP from the losing side. He was also the first linebacker to win the MVP of the Super Bowl. If you look at his career, 25 interceptions as a middle linebacker is not that bad. Actually, it's better than not that bad. 18 fumble recoveries, All-Pro 6 times, Pro Bowl 6 times, Dallas Cowboy Ring of Honor, and I think he's one of the greatest linebackers of all time, and people just forget about him. Steve, who you got next?
I'll just go with Chuck Howley because he was on my list too. I'll just let you rank him number 8 on my list. I definitely think he belongs in the Hall of Fame for all the reasons you said. He's on my list, my unranked list of just players who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So I agree with you on both cases, Eddie Medders and Chuck Howley. Legitimate people that should be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt. So there you go.
All right, so Lucas, we're to the part of the show now. If this was you doing it, then me or Steve would make a joke that maybe we should make you go first. But who do you have at number 8?
I got center Kevin Moway. He was a member of the NFL's All-Decade.
You mean Kevin Moway?
Moway. Yeah. He earned 8 Pro Bowl bids, 7.
Yes.
7-time All-Pro, and yeah, I mean, I think there've only been 7 centers enshrined in the history of the Hall. He was, he was a finalist this past year, I think, which is a good sign for things to come. And I think, this is someone who was Urban Smart in the New York Jets. He was also center for Chris Johnson when he played for the, with the Tennessee Titans, and he was the leader of those offensive lines. So I like Kevin Moway. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
All right, Steve.
Yes. What number are we on now?
7.
7?
Did you give me a 7?
Mike, I don't think you did your 8.
That was 8.
You haven't done your 8 yet.
Oh, I haven't done my 8 yet? I haven't done my 8.
No.
All right. I'm going to go with Frank.
Mike, you should rank your players so you know what order you're going to talk about them in.
They are ranked, so why don't you be quiet? All right. I'll tell you, Steve's being a smartass again. It's just going to get it so Lukas, my Canadian buddy, is going to be my co-host. And then we'll just have Steve on from time to time. But the only thing that saved Steve was if anybody missed it, Rashad McCants' interview yesterday, I thought went great. And Steve was the man that came up with the plan and the questions on that. All right. My number 8 is a man who didn't have a lot of interceptions, but Frank Minifield. I think Frank Minifield from 84 through 92, especially when he was teamed with Hanford Dixon, I think they were one of the top 3 tandems in NFL history. I mean, these guys were so good that they actually got the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs and actually won playoff games. So my number 8 is Frank Minifield. So that brings us to 7 for Steve.
Go to Lukas first.
Okay, Lukas. Steve's obviously unprepared after only having 24 hours to get ready.
No, I have all the names. I'm just looking
Lukas.
at statistics or something real quick.
Okay, Lukas.
I'm going to go with another. I'm going to go with another offensive lineman, Alan Faneca of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, like Moai, he was a member of the All-Decade team. Named in 9 Pro Bowls, 6 All-Pro teams with the Steelers. Arguably one of the best offensive linemen of his generation, the 2000s. So I like Faneca at number 7.
All right. My number 7 is Alex Karras. Come on, Steve, bring it.
No, I mean,
you wanted to make fun of me, so.
I'm not going to make fun of Alex Karras. He's.
Well, tell me why
he
shouldn't be in.
4-time Pro Bowl selection, first team All.
Oh, now you're going to read from Wikipedia. I'm just asking you. You told me. You made a comment.
No, I don't think he's worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. I think.
Wait a second. Now, Eddie Metter. Wait a second. Eddie Metter, you said deserved to be in the Hall of Fame because he was on the 1960s All-Decade team. The only other man on the 1960s All-Decade team that's not in the Hall of Fame is Alex Karras. So, by your criteria, you're wrong yourself.
I think Eddie Metters, who still owns 4 records for the Rams, right, like you said?
Yeah, and Alex Karras was just considered the best defensive tackle for an entire 10-year period in the NFL. He was a key piece, if not the cornerstone, of some great Lions defense that included Hall of Famers like Joe Schmidt, Night Train Lane, Lem Barney, who we had on this show, and Lem Barney couldn't say enough good things about him. Yale Larry, Dick LeBeau. And when you look at this, I mean, you had a fearsome foursome in Detroit, too, which people don't realize before it was in L.A. When you look at him, Mike Ditka called him the most dominant defensive lineman he'd ever seen. He said that he knows there was guys like Big Daddy Lipscomb. There were a lot of guys, but he said clearly Karras was the best. The reason Karras is not in the Hall of Fame is because he was suspended for a season, I think in 62 or 63, for gambling. The problem with that is this. So was Paul Hornung, but Paul Hornung still got in. And I will make the case, if we ever do a show, guys, that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, Paul Hornung would be one of those. If you look at his stats, they don't match up to any running backs. I mean, Roger Craig blows him off the stratosphere. So I got Alex Karras at number 7. I don't care what Steve Risley says. How about you, Lucas?
So in other words, what you're saying is it's okay to put Alex Karras in the Hall of Fame, although he got caught for gambling, but we can't put Pete Rose in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
All right,
he got caught for gambling.
wait a second, because now if you're going to bring that up, number 1, there was nothing in the NFL contract that you would be gotten rid of for that. Number 2, he didn't bet on NFL football games. They got him for gambling in a casino. They got him and Hornung for gambling in casinos. Gambling is gambling. So, yes, you are correct.
Right.
It would be the same if he's playing blackjack as if he was betting against the Detroit Lions to beat the Green Bay Packers. You're right. It was exactly the same thing.
All right. All I tell you about
and the thing is this, Paul Hornung's in the Hall of Fame.
Other than making the 1960s All-Decade team, he never won an individual award in football.
He was a defensive tackle. How many in wait a second. Tell me all the defensive linemen in the 1960s that won an individual award.
I can't do that. So I just whatever. I know Alex Karras because he was in the movie Against All Odds with Rachel Ward and Jeff Bridges. It was a great movie, football movie.
He was in a lot of movies. He was in Paper Lion, the 1968-69 iconic George Plimpton film. He was in Blazing Saddles.
And I'm the oldest one here. So.
Well, I'm not the oldest one here, but I know he was one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time. Steve, what's your number 7?
I don't have a number 7. The next person I would pick to be in the Hall of Fame. Hang on here. I got to get back to the stats so I can blow you out of the water with it.
Yeah, like you've been doing. Go ahead.
I'm getting there. This computer is working slowly today. The next player I would put in the Hall of Fame, in no uncertain ranking, probably one of my top picks if I did, would be Kenny Anderson, quarterback of the Bengals. I think that the career he had over his tenure, he's one of the most unheralded quarterbacks, really. Most valuable player in 1981, Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, 4 times Pro Bowl, first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro, led the league in completions twice, passing yards twice, most passing yards per game, highest quarterback ranking 4 times. I mean, many people will tell you in the research I did when I looked, and I did research the people that I did, but most people will tell you that Bill Walsh pretty well developed his West Coast offense based on how Kenny Anderson was playing quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals at about that time. So he's often quietly credited with kind of being the founding child of the West Coast offense.
All right. The West Coast offense was started because of Virgil Carter, and this does tie in with the Bengals. Bill Walsh was the great cook, one of the greatest quarterbacks Bill Walsh said he ever saw, got hurt, had an arm injury in his 69 season when he was the Rookie of the Year. In 1970, they thought Cook would be able to come back and play, and he couldn't, and they had to go with Virgil Carter. Virgil Carter had a weak arm, to say the least. The West Coast offense was developed so they could work the Bengals offense around Virgil Carter. But then they drafted Ken Anderson, who had a stronger arm, but Kenny Anderson was one of the most accurate passers. He was really one of the first guys to, throw the short passes. Him, Isaac Curtis, Bob Trumpy, Chip Myers. It wasn't designed because of him. It was designed because of Virgil Carter. But then the Bengals picked him in the 3rd round, and he was put into that offense, and that is the basis of the West Coast offense, which was him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is this.
It's good research, though, right?
Yeah, it was great research, except you missed the Virgil Carter thing. Because really, Virgil Carter not being able to throw the ball past 35, 40 yards was the reason why you ended up getting Kenny Anderson, Joe Montana, and guys like that. Because if you look at it, Montana was a guy that didn't have – Montana wasn't going to sling the ball 60 yards down the field like Randall Cunningham. But he'd throw an 80-yard touchdown pass. He'd hit an 80-yard touchdown pass by hitting John Taylor in stride on a slant.
Right.
So I've actually got Kenny Anderson a little bit higher. I got him at number 4.
I don't have him ranked. I have him on the list. He's definitely
I know. I know. Yeah. But what I'm saying is this. The other thing that stands out to me to Anderson is this. When you look at him, he lost that Super Bowl, but he was also one of the very few quarterbacks at that point to throw for 300 yards in a Super Bowl game. And that Super Bowl was lost because Chris Collinsworth fumbles the ball on the 5 after he catches a long bomb from Anderson. And then the Bengals can't field 2 basically squib kicks at the end of the first half, which gave up the 6 points they lost by. But on top of that, he was also the first quarterback in NFL history to lead the NFL in passing in back-to-back seasons. I think he did it in 74 and 75. But then the thing that's amazing is he did it again in 81 and 82, and he was the only man to ever do that by the time you get to the 82 season, and he'd done it twice. So I think he's a guy that – go ahead.
If I'm reading my stats right, he was in 81, he was the player, the MVP of the league, the player of the year, and the comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
So
and then in 1982, he set the completion percentage record at over 70%, and he also set the record in a single game for completions in a row. I think he completed like 20 in a row or somewhere around that in the Astrodome against the Houston Oilers in the 82 season.
Yeah, and in all sincerity, Mike, I know that you and him are friends, and I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
You didn't steal my thunder because, it's great that people bring him up because I think he's a no-brainer.
He's a no-brainer. He's probably one of the 2 or 3 no-brainers who's not in the Hall that should be in the Hall. that people like Randy Moss get in, and Kenny Anderson's not in, that's my problem.
Hey, Randy Moss at least showed up for the induction.
Well, Randy Moss deserves the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Randy Moss deserves in the Hall of Fame. But you know what?
Okay.
This is the thing.
Above Kenny
Randy
Anderson,
Moss may deserve it, but so does Kenny Anderson.
Right. And that's why I don't rank.
Right on.
And that's why I think it's kind of a joke. But I grew up a Bengals fan until the Colts came in '84. Then I became a Colts fan.
Communist.
But I remember watching Kenny Anderson. I thought he was a great quarterback. He was my favorite quarterback of all in that period of my life growing up, because the Bengals were my team too. Like I said, until '84.
When you became a communist and just left. I mean, that's gay. Yeah. You can't quit liking your team. That's just sad.
I've never stopped.
That's something a Canadian would do.
Yeah, but
no,
I definitely think Kenny Anderson is one of the biggest. Kenny Anderson is one of the biggest travesties to not be in the Hall of Fame right now of the people we're going to name today. I definitely think he's one of the most unheralded quarterbacks ever to play the position. And there are a lot of quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame that shouldn't be there above him.
Lucas, what are we at, 6?
7
or 5?
6. Yeah.
6, okay.
I still haven't done my 6. So
yeah, you were the last number 7.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Zach Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zach Thomas, linebacker. You just look at the numbers. He went on, in his rookie year, he had 1,700 total tackles, which are 5th most among linebackers.
No, he didn't. In his rookie season, there's no way he had 1,700 tackles. I think you misspoke.
Yeah, he did. No, he does. I'm looking right now at
1,700 tackles in one season.
Correct.
No.
Career total tackles.
That's not possible.
Total
career total, maybe, but not in a season.
You can't do 17
Okay.
He didn't play
Jeez, I bet you let a Canadian on the show and everything just goes to crap.
You can't play 1,700 plays in a season. You have to make every tackle.
All right.
There are 1,700 plays in a season.
Okay, so I should just shut up then. I should just shut up.
You know what? You know what the thing there is, Lucas? Better to keep your mouth shut and let people think you're an idiot than open it and prove it.
So
Go
can
ahead.
I talk now, or is this where it's going to be? Okay, so the 1,700 career tackles, 5th most among linebackers since it's been tracked, 17 INTs, 16 forced fumbles. You actually racked up more tackles per game than Ray Lewis with 9.39 average. So, I mean, if you look at the numbers, he made 7.
Yeah, but you also got to look at this, Lucas. Ray Lewis was playing usually with a defensive line and guys like Terrell Suggs next to him that were taking some of those tackles.
Okay, but
I mean, in Miami, he played with nobody except for Jason Taylor.
Yeah, but that means still the numbers speak for themselves, and I just think that he's a member of the 2000s All-Decade team. And I think, if you record those tackles in your career and those numbers and those accomplishments, you should be in the Hall of Fame. So Zach Thomas for me. I know he didn't play for a great team, but he still was a great linebacker.
Now, you do have Sam Mills on your list higher, don't you?
Pardon me?
Sam Mills is in your top 5 then, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Because you can't be putting Zach Thomas ahead of Sam Mills. And my number 6 is Sam Mills. 1,300 tackles for his career. If he'd had it in a season, he would be the most amazing player of all time. Now, the reason that stands out to me is this. He only played like 10 complete seasons, 11 years in the NFL. Zach Thomas was like 13 or 14, right? Lucas?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had a guy that was undersized. He played at Montclair State University. He was undrafted, signed with the Browns, was cut, was released after a concussion. He signed with the Toronto Argonauts. He was released from the Toronto Argonauts. He gets picked up by the Philadelphia Baltimore Stars. And that Stars team was by far the most dominant USFL team for 3 years. They go to the championship game all 3 years. But he goes to New Orleans, and you had the Dome Patrol defense, which with Ricky Jackson, Vaughn Johnson, Pat Swilling, maybe the greatest collection of linebackers on a single team ever. He goes to, and the thing is, he had the Saints in the playoffs. And the Saints, until that defense got there, had never made the playoffs. I think the first time they made it was in '87 when they went in 12-3 during the strike-shortened season, but lost to the Vikings. They got handled like 44-10. He goes to Carolina. And that Carolina team, I think people forget, by their second or third year, they're playing in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Of course, you had the sad ending with the cancer. But I think, for my money, I think it's almost criminal Sam Mills isn't in the Hall of Fame. But what the hell? Mr. Risley.
I had Sam Mills on my list, so I'll just concur with you. I didn't have him ranked. I didn't rank, but I had him on my list, definitely. So I'll just fall right and sit with you on that one.
All right.
Hey,
let's go ahead and go to number.
I had one question. On these all-decade teams, who voted for them? Fans, players, coaches?
Sports writers at the time.
Sports writers at the time? Okay.
Yeah, at the time. Wasn't after. It was in 1970 they voted for the 1960s team.
All right,
and they were writers that basically a part of the, whatever it is, the Football Writers Association of America.
I respect writers' opinions. They follow it closer than anybody does, so that's who I would want voting.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was a fan vote.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
All right, so you want to give us your fifth or number 5 or whatever you call it?
The next person on my list would be L.C. Greenwood. I think he's probably one of the top 2 or 3, and I think he gets off in the line because 9 of the other Steelers of the 70s are in the Hall of Fame. He's the 10th one who's not. He was, a solid member of the Steel Curtain, a big part of their, success. He's 6-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro selection twice. He's on the 70s All-Decade team. And what he has over Alex Karras, he's got 4 Super Bowl rings. And
Alex Karras played defensive tackle. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what does it have to do with anything? He wasn't on a Super Bowl team.
Okay, I don't know what playing defensive tackle has to do with winning a Super Bowl. I can see it with a quarterback, but with a defensive tackle, one player, I think it's really hard to rip that because I think the greatest player not in the Hall of Fame never even got in a Super Bowl, and I don't think as a defensive tackle,
You're right.
Alex Karras had nothing to do with the offense not being able to score.
All right, I'll give you that. But don't we all say defense wins championships?
Yeah, but one defensive tackle doesn't. A collection do. But you still got to score. I mean, people that say defense wins championships they're idiots. I mean, defense will get you to the championship game, but in the end, you got to score more points than the other team.
So what you're really saying is Bob Knight's an idiot.
Yes. I mean, he recruited you. Obviously.
I want to put that on tape. So we'll have that. So when we get Bob Knight on the show, that we'll be able to play that you think Bob Knight was an idiot.
Yeah, and then just make sure you do this. You make sure that you put the part where I said because he recruited Steve Risley, and I guarantee you Bob Knight will agree with me then.
Probably will. This isn't about me, though, is it? So that's fine. I don't disagree with you there either. I think L.C. Greenwood definitely. I think he's not in there probably because there's people who think there are too many of the 70 Steelers already in the Hall of Fame. But I definitely think that, there's no dilution there in his talent or skills or contributions to one of the most dominant franchises in all of sports for the period of time when they were dominant and led by a cast of Hall of Famers. And I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. So he's on my list.
My other point on the winning a Super Bowl with a Hall of Famer is this. Yeah. The Hall of Fame is an individual award. It's not a team award.
Right.
But, all right, Lucas, you 5?
Yeah, I got Sam Mills at number 5 for the reasons that you mentioned, Mike. To me, he was the best player to ever play for my Carolina Panthers in the franchise history. 5-time Pro Bowler, as you say, over 1,300 tackles for his career. He's just a great player, and I agree. He definitely should be in the Hall of Fame. So Sam Mills for me, number 5.
All right, my number 5 is Mike Ken, offensive tackle, Atlanta Falcons. Played 17 years, made 251 starts, only missed 9 games during that time, named the 5 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pro teams, had his number retired by his team, and I will throw this in also. This is another one where he didn't win a Super Bowl, didn't get close to one, but the offensive line that the Falcons had from like 1977 through the mid-'80s is one of the greatest offensive lines of all time. He had Bill Fralick, George Coons, Jeff Van Note. I think a guy like Jeff Van Note's another guy that you could put in the Hall of Fame without a problem. I think the team overall is penalized by the mediocrity because during Ken's 17 years, I mean, the Falcons only had 3 winning seasons and non-strike seasons and just won 2 playoff games. So I'm going to go Mike Ken at number 5. Lucas, 4?
Number 4 for me is Jim Marshall, defensive end for the Vikings. Big problem with making a case, for Marshall because, he's back then, individual defensive stats. The NFL didn't keep track of them until, until the 80s. But, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, credit him with, 127 career quarterback takedowns, which is pretty impressive. And if that number, is accurate, puts him in the top 15 of all defensive linemen of all time. Indisputable facts include Marshall's 282 consecutive games played, 3rd all-time, consecutive games started, his 30 career fumble recoveries, first among defensive linemen. And, his 164 AV ranks him 30th among all NFL players and 6th among all defensive linemen. So I got Jim Marshall, number 4.
And here's a guy that wishes he only had 29 fumble recovers because he took one of them 80 yards the wrong way for a touchdown for the opposing team.
Yeah, but you know what? If it wasn't for that, people might have totally forgot about him.
Exactly. He's just a guy that goes in the Hall of Fame right on the coattails of Carl Eller and Alan Page. I mean, he's not riding on the coattails. He was just as important to those teams as those guys were. Yeah.
And I think it's one of the – you talked about L.C. Greenwood, who was actually in my top 4. And it's kind of the same thing. L.C. Greenwood, as you said, he kind of gets overlooked because of all the other great players. Right. I mean, you got half of that Viking defense is already in the Hall of Fame. And it's the inability to count sacks or tackles until 1982, which has kept him out. If you go back and watch tape and the way he pressured the quarterbacks, he had incredible technique. His hands were amazing. He had great feet. He had the ability to push offensive linemen off of their spots to get into the backfield. I think the guy is straight up legend and belongs in. He was my number 4 also. So,
and he did it.
Oh, wow, we agree on something for the first time.
Sometimes you're right.
Long. What was the length of his career? How many years did he end up playing?
He played 20 years.
Yeah,
he played from 1960 to 1979.
Right. To have that kind of a longevity career probably deserves you a serious look or you should be considered at a higher level just by playing the game for that long. I think that starts to play into it. But you're right. He is another one, like an L.C. Greenwood. He's overlooked by the number of players from a certain team that have already gone in. Where are we at?
All right.
Well, the next person I have is Steve Atwater, safety for the '90s Broncos. Played strong safety, but often was moved up to as an 8th man up on the defensive front. Had a lot of tackles for his team, playing in that position. The guy's an 8-time Pro Bowl selection, first team All-Pro twice, second team All-AFL Pro selection. He's on the '90s All-Decade team, 2 Super Bowl rings. Again, I know we're not, but still, when you start looking reasons to put people in or out, those check boxes become important.
Well, I'll tell you the thing about him is you ought to just team him up with Dennis Smith and put them both in together because they were one of the greatest safety combinations in NFL history.
Right, but they solidified that defense, that Broncos defense, the Orange Crush, and the newer version of it, but there's a guy probably who is, again, a little bit unheralded because of the success of the offense in Elway at that time, that I think belongs in the Hall of Fame when you look at his stats and look at his contributions to the team. and they wouldn't have won without him playing in that position.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like I said, I mean, with Dennis Smith, I think you can make a case for both of them. I don't even know which one was better. They were just great together, and the hit he put on Christian Okoye was still one of the biggest hits you'll ever see. You go YouTube it and find it. My number 3 was Kenny Anderson. Lucas, 3.
My number 3 is Edgerrin James, the running back.
What?
Really?
I'm a Colts
You're
fan.
out of your mind.
You're out of your mind, and I'm a Colts fan.
No. 10,000 yards rushing. If you look at all the guys that are 10,000 yards rushing, they're in the Hall of Fame.
No, they're not, because Corey Dillon has like 12,000 yards. He's not in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he should be.
Yeah, and Corey Dillon should be there before Edgerrin James.
Go ahead. I'm giving some love for Edgerrin James. I'm giving some love for him, first team All-Pro, member of the All-Decade team. He was a solid running back.
I disagree with that too. But go ahead.
Well, whatever.
Your argument can be whatever. Keep going.
No. 10,000 yards. You should be in the Hall of Fame, just like Corey Dillon, just like Frank Gore, just like Adrian Peterson. All should be in the Hall of Fame.
Frank Gore's a Hall of Famer now, huh?
Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer
I don't
too?
think he's going to be. Well, he's going to be inducted. He hasn't retired. He just retired.
No, he's still playing, isn't he?
He's still playing. Somebody picked him up. New England's got him.
Yeah, I don't know who's got him, but
I think it's New England took him. I don't know if he's made the team yet, but I think he went up to New England. So I believe so. I believe I just read that.
And
I don't think so, but I think he went somewhere. Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, Corey Dillon was better.
Also, well, your opinion, Mike.
No, it's not my opinion. You watch him play. He was better. Corey Dillon did it behind a horrible offensive line with no quarterback, no wide receivers, no nothing. He also set the rookie record at one point for, 248 yards in a game. Then he set the NFL record for most yards in a game, over 270, again, behind a bad team. But go ahead.
All right, you guys.
Well,
I don't want to now.
Your pick?
Now I feel bad because it feels like I hurt your feelings. But my number 2 is L.C. Greenwood.
Change my pick.
I didn't tell you to change your pick. If you changed your pick, it wouldn't be any fun. But, yeah. My number 2 was L.C. Greenwood. Steve, I don't think we need to say much more about him. He's one of those guys that when you look at it, the fact that he's not in it is so mind-blowing that there's really not much to be said.
Yeah.
Number 1, he had like the coolest freaking name ever.
LC,
Yeah.
L.C. Greenwood. That could be like a porn star or a Hall of Fame football player. Yeah, he could be like an alien and a porn star. Yeah, you know what I mean. But go ahead. Steve, number 2.
Me?
Well, again, I don't have a number 2. I did one pick I called what I call my veterans pick, where people get in on a veteran selection or something like that. This is a guy I think the veterans ought to step up and get behind, and that's John Brody. I think John Brody had a pretty stellar career. It's kind of starting the whole brigade of, high gun quarterbacks coming out of the San Francisco 49ers. Most valuable player, Pro Bowl selections twice, first team All-Pro. 3 times led league completions, most attempts twice, passing yards 3 times led, most TD passes led twice, most passing yards per game led the league 3 times, highest quarterback rating he led in 1970, highest completion finish 3 different times. He's basically his entire career still in the top 10 finishes and passes completed, passing yards. He's a stellar, solid, great top 10 quarterback according to his stats and things like that. Still ranked, in the top 30 in passing touchdowns, 37th in passing attempts, 41 passing yards. 45th in passes completed. I think John Brodie would not be probably a selection, but would be a veteran, great veteran selection to recognize John Brodie. He's kind of the start of the era of the great San Francisco quarterbacks.
I would go with Roman Gabriel before him.
Yeah, I looked at Roman Gabriel.
But Roman Gabriel was on my show, and John Brodie wasn't, so I am.
Yeah, but Gabriel had really one good year, really, truly. I mean,
oh, come on. Gabriel, there's no way you can say Gabriel was the NFL MVP in 1969, and then he was the comeback player of the year a few years later with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I had it down to Gabriel and Brodie. I just went with Brodie because I think Brodie started the tradition of great quarterbacks in that 49er franchise.
Not really, because he played in the 60s, and they didn't have early 70s. They didn't have another quarterback till the early 80s.
Yeah, well, I looked at Roman Gabriel, too. The only thing I remember about Roman Gabriel that knocked it out for me was he was such a frickin' terrible actor, and he gave up his football career to go into acting.
Hey, Roman listens to our shows, by the way.
Well, that's okay.
I'm not kidding either. He does. He was in the Undefeated. He was in Gilligan's Island, dude. Come on.
I know.
If you have to be a great actor to be in Gilligan's Island.
The Harlem Globetrotters were on Gilligan's Island. Give me a break. And they got off the
island. He was an Indian in the Undefeated. And, I mean, if I want to I'm going to have him on the show tomorrow. I'm going to call him today. We're going to have him on the show tomorrow. And you're going to explain to him why John Brodie's better than him.
It came down to those two. I wanted to have a veterans pick. I wanted to say, here's a guy that I think the veterans need to get behind. And you know what, frankly, I don't care if you go with Brodie or Gabriel. I just chose Brodie over Gabriel because of the legends of the quarterbacks at San Francisco. Gabriel was my first. I debated between those two for a veterans pick. Do either of you have a veterans pick? You guys didn't even.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Roy Jefferson, Eddie Metter, Chuck Howley, and Cliff Branch all were veterans picks.
I specifically.
I didn't call it a veterans pick because they're not in the military.
No,
Lucas, what's your number one?
Because you wanted to rank people.
I haven't done.
You thought it was more important to rank who belongs in the Hall of Fame rather than say, the veterans need to get behind.
Well,
Roman
Steve's
Gabriel.
going on a tangent now.
Yeah, the veterans should get behind Roman Gabriel and John Brodie and say, these are two great quarterbacks that belong in the Hall.
See, the only way that my first four would get in would be if the veterans get behind them. And Kenny Anderson's one that would need to go through the veterans also. But who you got at number one, Lucas?
I haven't done my number two.
No, who you got at number two then?
So my number two quickly is Kenny Anderson for me, for the reasons that you guys mentioned. I mean, just to be
sure it's not Marco
crime why he isn't in the Hall of Fame. No. I think Marshall Faulk is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame.
I had to think of a stupid running back from the Colts.
As a Ram. Well, the Colts were stupid and traded him.
He was a Ram.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He was a Ram. And he was actually a great running back, too. So that's my number two, Kenny Anderson, and my number one is L.C. Greenwood. I mean, how can you not put him in as well? I mean, for those two, to me, L.C. Greenwood, number one.
All right. My number one, I really can't believe you guys don't have him on there, is Joe Klecko. Joe Klecko is the greatest defensive lineman I think played a game.
I looked at him. I just wasn't.
Joe Klecko is the only man in history to be a Hall of Famer to be a Pro Bowler, first pro all-team selection at three different positions. He did it at nose tackle, defensive end. The thing that stood out to me is this. The thing that stood out to me was this. I got to do when I was the coach of the River Monsters, I got to be at a thing where Anthony Munoz was. We sat at the same table. And my question to him was, who were the worst guys that you had to mess with, that you had to block? And he said there was only three guys that I ever worried about. He said that was Joe Klecko, Leroy Selman, and Bruce Smith. He said Joe was the strongest man he ever faced. He had perfect technique, hands tight, great leverage. He said he was the most intense and smart player he ever played against. I think if he stays at one of those positions his entire career, he's probably already in the Hall of Fame. But when Anthony Munoz, and he's more known probably as a nose tackle or defensive tackle, but Anthony Munoz, when he was blocking him, he was playing defensive end. So Bruce Smith, I don't think, could have been a stud nose tackle. I don't think Reggie White would have been a stud nose tackle. But Joe Klecko was the best player of the 1980s at 3 different positions.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy that, at nose tackle, one of the best ever. Defensive tackle, one of the best ever. Defensive end, one of the best ever. And the thing that blows my mind here is he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, and he's from New York. And you look at him, you look at the New York Sack Exchange with Abdul Salam, Marty Lyons, Mark Gastineau. That was one of the greatest defensive lines of all time. Now, the thing that may keep him out of the Super Bowl is the fact that Don Shula in 1981 refused to cover for the entire – it rained for an entire 4 or 5 days before the 82 AFC Championship game. The thing about the Jets is they were a 6-3 team that went to Cincinnati, played the number 2 seed Bengals, beat them. They go out to L.A., beat the number 1 seed Raiders. They go to play the number 3 Dolphins, and the Raiders and Bengals were better than the Dolphins. But it pours down rain for 4 days. And Don Shula, who is the head of the NFL competition committee, decided that the fairest competition would be to leave the tarp off the field. They get there, and the field is a complete quagmire. Now, the New York Jets are a team that had Wesley Walker, Jerome Barkham. I mean, they had playmakers. They had Freeman McNeil running the ball. But McNeil was an edge runner. And the problem was he couldn't get to the edge. You look at the Dolphins, they were a team that was dominated by the Killer Bee defense. Was that Baumhauer? I don't remember their names. But they had the Killer Bee defense, and they had a running back named Andre Franklin. Andre Franklin was the guy that ran the ball between the tackles. So what happens is A.J. Dewey intercepts like 3 passes, makes a career off of that game. The Jets ended up losing 14-0. If that field is playable and in good shape the way it should have been if Don Shula wouldn't have done this. And see, the thing that pisses me off with Don Shula is everybody talks about him like he's this great, clean legend. And he's not. If you look at him in 1970, when he left the Colts for the Dolphins, he did it illegally, and Carol Rosenblum, the owner of the Colts, got fined, the owner of the Dolphins, actually, Robbie, got fined massively because of the way Shula left. Because Shula was still under contract, left anyways. They got fined. And when you look at Shula, he wants to sit there and bitch and complain in 1982 because you had the Patriots come out, with a snow shovel or whatever and clean off the damn field so they can lose a game 3-0 New England. He cries like a bitch then. But he's a man that in the 82 AFC Championship game, you want to talk about Bill Belichick cheating? Well, there's not a bigger cheat than Don Shula. He was the head of the competition committee, and he left the field uncovered for 4 days in a torrential downpour. And then he acted like, I didn't really do that on purpose. So I think if Joe Klecko and that New York Jet team goes to the Super Bowl, I think they would have beat the Washington Redskins. I don't think Riggins runs for 148 yards against them. And I think Joe Klecko is probably in the Hall of Fame right now because of it. So, screw Don Shula.
Okay, here's what I took from that. I agree with you on Joe Klecko, and I looked at him, but I didn't have the breadth of knowledge you have about him playing 3 different positions and being all pro.
3 different positions.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I said that 3. I did not know that. Secondly, I think
plus he was
really
the defensive player of the year in 1981.
Yeah, and plus he played with Gastineau, which I could not stand Gastineau, so that kind of
Marty Lyons was a better player than Gastineau also.
Yeah, I know. And then mostly what I took from that is you think Don Shula should not be in the Hall of Fame. That's what I really took out of that dissertation.
No, I think Don Shula, with everything he did, you can't keep him out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I just think that what he did, I don't consider him one of the 10 greatest coaches. I mean, hell, if you look at him, he won the 2 Super Bowls. He lost the biggest game in NFL history. You can't take that away from him. The biggest game, Super Bowl III, he lost. When you look deeper into him and at all the crap that he's done on top of it, I mean, he went from 1973. He went the last 20 years of his career without winning a Super Bowl. So, I mean, hell, how many guys that you would list in the top 10 coaches did that? I mean, the closest you could get to it would be Tom Landry, but his string was only 8 or 9 years. And plus, Don Shula had freaking Dan Marino. Never got him a running back, never got a defense for him, and they never won anything with Dan Marino. But that's just my tangent.
That's okay. We all have tangents. The last player I had, and again, I had not being honest, it's a joke, is Roger Craig. I think this is a guy who has been grossly a tremendous contributor to the run of the 49ers in that period. and probably grossly his accomplishments were overlooked because of the exploits of Montana and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott and the guys, and another one of those kind of L.C. Greenwood, Jim Marshall kind of victims. But, this guy was Offensive Player of the Year, Pro Bowl selection 4 times, first-team All-Pro selection, second-team All-Pro, on the 80s All-Decade team, led the league in receptions in 1985, most yards from scrimmage in 1988, led the league. He's got 3 Super Bowl rings. In many categories, he's in the top 50 of notable all-time rankings still. I just think Roger Craig, much more than Edgar and James, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and is not in the Hall of Fame.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And we had him on our show, me and Matt did like 2 or 3 years ago. And the thing that was amazing about him is I think every team he played on made the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
Every team. No matter where he went after that, they made the playoffs.
No-nonsense player, played hard every single play, as I remember watching him. Ran with just punishment. Ran north-south, ran east-west, whichever way he had to go, he figured it out. And it was a perfect compliment and probably contributed a lot to Montana's success because you had to be so successful or so respectful of Roger Craig being on the field. And with Montana running the play action as well as he did in the West Coast offense, I mean, you always had to know where Roger Craig was on the field. And certainly as big of a factor of the run of that 49ers era as any player on that field, short of maybe Montana. But I definitely think that, to me, if I was going to put somebody number 1, I probably would put Roger Craig number 1. I just can't believe he's not in the Hall of Fame.
The thing I think that hurts Roger Craig is the 1990 NFC Championship game. I mean, the 1990 NFC Championship game, the 49ers were going for their 3rd straight Super Bowl championship. They had the lead by 2 points, I believe it was, with a little over 2 minutes left. He fumbles the ball. The Giants recover it. The Giants win the game. I think in the end that hurts him, but I also think, Lucas, you want to comment on this? Once again, I think it's just there's so many guys on that team that are already in the Hall that sometimes guys get left out just because they don't want to add them. I think that's what happened to Jerry Kramer, too.
Oh, for sure. I think, I think unfortunately the committee who puts these guys in, they want to say, well, there's enough already of this team in there so that leaves kind of an odd man out. As you said, we saw it with Jerry Kramer. We've seen it with L.C. Greenwood. And it's too bad because these guys are getting overlooked when they had Hall of Fame worthy career, and it's just a darn shame.
Well, all right. So, what's your feeling on Roger Craig, Lucas?
Yeah, I think he should be a Hall of Famer, just like I think Klecko should be a Hall of Famer.
Rank Roger Craig with Edgar James.
Yeah, that's my real question.
Yeah, that's the question for him. Rank Roger Craig alongside Edgar James. Who belongs in the Hall? You only take one into the Hall. Who do you take it?
Well, out of those two, Roger Craig, but that's an unfair comparison. Edgar James is only 3. There's only been 2 other running backs other than Edgar and James to have 1,500-yard season. Barber and Tomlinson. And I don't know. I just think Edgar James gets overlooked because, look, his career was dampened by injury, and that's unfortunate. You can't ignore the numbers. You just can't. But, I would take Roger Craig over Edgar James. But I would take Edgar and James. I think it's a good debate of those guys who played in that era, Edgar and James, Corey Dillon, Jerome Bettis, Sean Alexander. I would take Edgar and then Corey Dillon, in my opinion.
Well, I think Roger Craig's thing that stands out is this. Every team he ever played for made the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
And he made some big plays in the Super Bowl. I think Craig was a better all-around back than James. I don't think James was that great catching the ball. I don't think James was a great blocker. Roger Craig was a guy that never had to come off the field if you didn't want him to.
And Edgar came out about every 4th play. Trust me, I watched the Colts. Edgar and every 3rd or 4th play, he was on the sidelines getting oxygen. So.
But, all right, guys, do we have any final comments?
No.
No, I'm good.
All right. Now, I do have one thing I want to talk about, but this is just more of, Steve every once in a while calls BS. I have a final thought on Jerry Jones if anybody wants to hear it. It'll take about 2 minutes. All right.
Sure.
So I'm looking at this, and I wrote this was going to be an article, but I just figured I'd say it just because, Jeremiah would have to edit it, and a lot of editing when me and Steve write. But let me get this straight, and this is about Jerry Jones. Wearing a hat during the national anthem, as Dallas Cowboy owner Jerry Jones did last month, is fine. Same for Jones' team and most others, keeping the beer lines flowing while the Star-Spangled Banner plays. But quietly demonstrating to protest racism and social injustice is disrespectful and anti-American? Sure, Jones's hypocrisy, which he ratcheted up Sunday by refusing to comment, apologize, or otherwise illuminate his disrespect for the anthem, illustrates why NFL owners are never going to win this fight over the players' protest. It is not simply because the president is going to dog whistle the issue any chance he gets to rile up his base ahead of the midterm elections. The players know exactly why they're protesting and are as passionate about the issues that have prompted them to take a knee or raise a fist. They have spent their off days and off season lobbying legislators, promoting ballot initiatives, and meeting with underprivileged and at-risk kids. And the thing is this, you'll see all these people on Facebook that comment, well, players are awful quiet during the offseason. They're not. It's just people don't report on players that are doing stuff to help their community. If you were at the Carolina Panthers' final training camp practice at Wofford College on Monday, in fact, you would have seen veteran wide receiver Torrey Smith on the field afterwards talking to a group of teenage boys. They were from Kids, White Pines, a residential program for kids convicted of nonviolent crimes. And Smith wanted to make sure they knew they could still make something of their lives. He said that my message to them was not letting your past define you. When you make a mistake when you're young, it doesn't forgive you. It's going to hang with you when you want to get a real job, when you need a loan, whatever it may be. Sometimes people don't get it removed. So I just talk to them about not letting that hold them back, not letting society put pressure on them to hold them back, and figuring out what success looks like for them. Now, Smith, you might recall, was among the Players Coalition members who came out for practice earlier this month in T-shirts with the slogan, "Schools, Not Prisons," to call attention to the number of incarcerated kids. And mind you, most of these incarcerated kids are for nonviolent acts. The owners, on the other hand, really don't care about the anthem, the military, law enforcement, or anything else. Their concern is protecting their bottom line, and they see the protests and Trump's tweets about them as a threat to that. Oh, Jones and his son Stephen talk a good game, blustering about how no one in a Cowboys uniform will ever protest the anthem. You stand at the anthem, you toe on the line, is what the elder Jones said July 25th. What's the old John Wooden quote, Steve? The true test of a man's character is what he does when no one's watching. 3 days later, Jones kept his baseball hat on while a trumpeter played the national anthem during the ceremony to open the team's training camp. In one video, Stephen Jones even appeared to tell his father to remove his hat, and yet the hat stayed on. That, of course, and I'm sure that everybody is against all this kneeling, everybody knows that that is in violation of U.S. Code Title 36 and the Flag Code, to be exact. And I'm sure you all know this because you're all great patriots who stand even when you're at your own house watching the game. It says in U.S. Code Title 36, during a rendition of the national anthem, men not in uniform, if applicable, should remove their headdress with their right hand and hold it at the left shoulder, the hand being over the heart. That's what the code reads. And no, I don't think wearing a Cowboys polo shirt counts as being in uniform. The NFL loves its fake displays of patriotism, and somewhere along the way, Jones began confusing them with the real thing. The flyovers, the oversized flags, the Whitney Houston wannabes, those are merely props. It's the tireless, and in the player's case, the thankless work of striving for more and a perfect union that our founders envisioned. This is the truest display of patriotism. It would be nice if Jones would recognize that. Short of that, maybe he should keep his hypocrisy to himself. Now, anybody here that wants to say, well, I'm going to unfollow the Grilling Truth. I can tell you this. I voted for Donald Trump. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. All I know is I voted against Hillary Clinton. And I would vote against Hillary Clinton again. But when we sit here and we say that you have to be mandated to do something in this country, I think we're just all missing the case of what freedom is about. But that's my 2 cents, Steve. You got anything?
All I'm going to say is all those trolls, or a few of the trolls out there that want to critique our shows and tell us we need accountants, lawyers, marketing representatives to better our product, listen to where that came from, okay? And that's an inside joke.
So that means it was all right, or what?
It was, well said. I mean, I'm no longer against players taking knees. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't care. If it was in the contract, I would be all for it, because I would never take a knee for the national anthem. But I'm not other people, and I can't project what I believe on other people and make them coalesce. Yeah. It's kind of like what they were talking about when we talked with Rashad McCants. And Rashad McCants is talking about, how they make these players be dependent on them, how they enslave the players. It's what the NFL owners are trying to do right now to the NFL players.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you make them you make them stand up because you can. Not because it's right, but because you can make them stand up. And once you make them stand up, you got them by the balls and it's over with.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But
now, me personally, I was flipping through. I got through the golf on Sunday, and I wanted to get to the NASCAR race, so I'm fast forwarding through it, and I come to the opening ceremonies, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to get through it. But I stopped and listened to the national anthem. I would not fast forward through the national anthem. I didn't think that was appropriate for me to do. And then as soon as the national anthem was over and they got in the cars and started fire engines, I fast forwarded to the last 20 laps of the race. So that's really, in the end, all that really mattered in the race. But that's just me. And it doesn't mean I'm a better person because I believe that, or I'm a worse person because I want to take a knee. They're stating their cause, and we're constitutionally protected to do it. And I agree with you. Having read McCann's book, and I'm going to tell you, this Plantation Education book is really a good read, because I was really pretty surprised at how North Carolina ran their academic program for their athletes. And I'm led to believe that in Indiana, where I played, it was definitely not the norm of how we did things, because we were held accountable to do everything for ourselves.
Steve, the thing that really stood out to me was this. When I first told you we're going to interview him, and we first get the book, and you called me, and you're like, I'm going to hammer this guy. This guy's nuts. But when you actually read everything he said, and you put 2 and 2 together, and you see the way they were treated, it's scary.
It's scary. It's very scary. It's very scary that how much power the NCAA has or Jerry Jones has because they have money. And, it's an interesting thing. So I no longer have a position on taking a knee. I mean, I appreciate their cause. That's what they want to do, and that's what they believe, and that's how they think they get their message across best. Who am I to say that's not right?
Yeah, and the NFL just needs to put it in the collective bargaining agreement. I want to remind everybody that tonight around 10 o'clock, the golf show will be up with you and Lukas. Lukas was there this last week. Lukas was supposed to pick me up a pair of free golf clubs. Did that work out all right, Lukas?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it did. All right. It's sort of. All right. He got me a putter. It's on its way.
I texted him 3 times, and I can produce a text that says, whatever you do, don't come home without a driver for Mike. And, Lukas, you failed us? It's a yes or no question, Lukas.
Well, you'll have to hear tonight on the golf show.
Oh, okay. Well, I know what's coming tonight. So he failed you.
Failed me, so.
Oh, well.
What do you expect when you send a Canadian to do an American's job? All right, guys.
Well, Lukas, I'm sure he sat in the media food tent for a lot of
all right.
So
We are going to wrap it up. We will be back tomorrow with a subject that hopefully will be interesting. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Lucas and Steve for joining me on the show again. Once again, you can hear us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Lukas Weese, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.